I was I was coming home one night in my car, and I stopped in front of this little church, and it was nighttime, and I don't know what attracted me to this church. So I pulled into the parking lot, and I rolled down my window, and I said, like I said, I was going through some hard times, and I said, looked up at the sky, and I said, God, if you're really there, I says, prove it to me. Show me that you're there. And less than a week later, I met this girl, and it's my very first girlfriend, serious girlfriend, who, by the way, ended up being my wife, and so that changed my life, and just like that, it was wonderful. She was military also, and so and I became a Christian, and I've been a born again Christian ever since. Sure. Well, I was on the verge of getting into a cult. One of these, I won't go into any specifics, but I almost got into this cult, and it was like just a last minute thing. I said, all right, Lord, if you're there, prove it to me, and boom. And it's ironic because this girl that I met and who was also in the military, she was also a born again Christian, at that time. And so, I mean, what are the chances of her being an actual honest to goodness Christian, and me asking God to prove it to me that He's there, and just, best thing that ever happened in my life. And yeah, well, that was awesome because at the time I was in the security police in the Air Force, which is equal to a MP in the Army. So I get this phone call. I was doing traffic on the back gate of the Lackland Air Force Base, and I got this phone call, and I ran inside to pick it up, and answer. I says, "Hello, this is Airman Duffy, Gate 3. How can I help you?" So it's a small voice in the background. Hello, hello, and I says, "How can I help you?" And what it was is she got the wrong number. It was one of the base telephone operators that had got the wrong number. Imagine that. So I kept talking to her and talking to her, which I shouldn't have been, but I did. And so one thing led to another, and I met her, and I says, "Well, look," I says, and it happened again twice, not once but twice. And I says, "Well, look, why don't we get together? Go to McDonald's or something, And she said, "Okay." And she said, "I'm going to be coming through this gate today, one of the other gates." And I says, "Okay, I'll be on that gate in a couple of days." She says, "Well, okay, I'll come through in this car, in this gold 73 Mercury Comet." And she says, "You'll know it's me because I'll flash the peace sign in the windshield." And so I'm like, at the gate working, and all of a sudden here comes this gold, Mercury Comet, and peace sign comes up, and I'm thinking, oh, wow. I said, what a gorgeous chick, So I'm thinking, okay, well, how am I going to know who she is, though? And so I copied down her license number really quick as she went to the gate. And at that time, we had the authority to run a license plate through the system, the police system. And so I did that. And so so I got her name and where she worked at and all this. So I called her up, and it says, "Hello, Elizabeth, how are you?" And she recognized my voice, and we started talking. So soon afterwards, we went on a little date, to McDonald's, and one thing led to another, and we fell in love, and and probably about a year after that, we both got stationed at the same base in Germany, and it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Unfortunately, she passed away, a number of years later, and we didn't have any kids. So, but I'll always cherish those memories that I have of her, and just wonder what might have been, She was Puerto Rican, and I always told myself, if we ever had children, that I would want her to teach our children Spanish. And I should have had her teach me Spanish, but I didn't. But it would probably surprise me how much Spanish I know if I actually sat down and wrote a list of words and phrases that I know. But, you know, um, it's ironic that God would give her to me and then, take her back. And that's just how he works. I mean, you've always heard the phrase, well, God works in mysterious ways. Well, that's nowhere to be found in the Bible, but it is true.